This is a story I know about a queen, and it goes with a really neat poem that goes like this. Queen, Queen Caroline washed her hair with turpentine, turpentine to make it shine. Poor Queen Caroline. You see, Caroline was a beautiful queen. She had beautiful black hair that was so long it flowed all the way down to her ankles. It was so curly and beautiful, and she had beautiful skin, beautiful sparkly eyes. But her beauty was only skin deep, because inside her heart she was not a nice lady. Everyone that lived around her castle and in her kingdom were very sad, because you know what? She was not nice. She was not nice at all. People were treated so badly by the queen. Nobody was ever happy because she would make everybody work and be her slaves. And even the farmers who grew beautiful vegetables and fruits would have to give everything to the queen, and she would take it all for herself. You know, she was mean and greedy. The queen always had many servants who took care of her, and one day she hired a new servant, and she was very kind. But she didn't know anything about Queen Caroline, since she was new to the village. The first thing the queen always wanted every morning was warm water in her bath. If the water was too hot or too cold, the queen would be so angry. She would say, "You're fired!" and she would send them away, and she would banish them from the village. Well, this new servant didn't know any of that, but somehow she made the best, most perfect temperature for the queen. And the queen sat in the water, and she said, "Oh, well, actually, this is nice." Well, the next thing the queen always wanted was she wanted to have her hair brushed and her makeup put on. Now remember, this new servant doesn't know anything about the queen, like that she would fire people if things aren't done right. This servant was very good at putting the queen's makeup on and doing her hair perfectly. The servant was very lucky, because most days the queen would have fired 3 or 4 people by this time. But this servant didn't know any of this because she was new. After the servant and the queen were all dressed and ready to go, she said to the servant, "You will come with me to the market." And the servant said, "Yes, my lady." And she followed the queen to the market. At one of the vendors at the market, a vendor is someone who sells a product, and at one of the vendors, the queen saw a sign. It was a big sign that said, "Turpentine will make it shine." And the queen thought, "Well, this is what I want for my hair. I'm going to buy all of the turpentine." Now, between you and me, do you know what turpentine is? Back in the olden days, they would use that for lice in your hair, bugs. Now we don't use it very much, but sometimes we use it to thin out paint. It's a really strong chemical that's very dangerous to use, and it's stinky. And the queen said, "I'm going to buy all of this turpentine." And the servant said, "Okay, I will load it up for you." She loaded all of it into the queen's cart. There were 300 bottles of turpentine that the queen bought. It was crazy because you know what? Nobody needs 300 bottles of turpentine. One little bottle goes a really long way. Now, this mean Queen Caroline said to her servant, "We are going to wash my hair with all of this turpentine. It's going to make my hair shine." And the servant said, "Oh, no, no, Queen, we are not going to put this in your hair. This is turpentine. This is not for you to use." And the Queen said, "How dare you argue with me? You do what I say." And the servant said, "I am not going to, and you need to stop being so mean. I will not put turpentine in your hair. Turpentine is a paint thinner, and it's stinky, and I won't do it." And the Queen said, "You're fired! Leave my kingdom." Then she looked at the servant and said, "Wait! You will go to the dungeon." Oh no! The servant was so afraid when she was sent to the dungeon. She was so lonely and scared. But do you know what happened? The Queen didn't listen to the servant about the turpentine, and she took 3 bottles of turpentine and dumped it into her hair. And as she was scrubbing and rubbing it all in, she started noticing her fingers becoming full of her hair. Her hair was falling out, and her fingers were getting stuck in her hair, and she was going, "Ah! Ooh! Oh!" And do you know what she looked like? Poor Queen Caroline. This is what she ended up looking like. Queen Caroline saw herself in the mirror, and she never worried about her inside heart, but she always worried about the way she looked. And when she saw herself, she started to cry. She was so sad. She was crying for herself. "Oh, I look so scary." And while she was crying, she started thinking about all the people in her village that she was mean to. She started crying for them and for herself and how mean she was. She cried for 3 days straight. Nobody could even talk to her. She just cried and cried and cried. You would have thought she could have cried a river. When she was crying, she realized that even though she was beautiful on the outside, she was not beautiful on the inside. She was mean to people. She thought, "I have to change. I have to be better." So you know what she did? She changed. That very next morning, she woke up and she saved all of the servants that she had sent to the dungeon. She made sure everyone was taken care of in her village, and all the farmers and workers could make their very own gardens for themselves to eat from. She became kind and good. And from that day on, do you know what? Queen Caroline was known as the kindest and most beautiful queen in all of the land. Now, I want you to echo my voice. I'm going to use my speaking voice, whisper voice, my shouting voice, or my singing voice. What voice do you think I'm going to use? Well, let's see. Here I go. Queen Caroline washed her hair with turpentine, turpentine to make it shine. Poor Queen Caroline. That's right. I used my speaking voice. This time, I'm going to say a line, and you repeat it after me. I'll go first. Queen Queen Caroline washed her hair with turpentine. Turpentine to make it shine. Poor Queen Caroline. Can you listen a little bit longer this time? Wait till I'm completely done before you say, Queen Caroline washed her hair with turpentine. My turn. Turpentine to make it shine. Poor Queen Caroline. This time, I'll say the whole poem, and then you try saying it back to me. My turn first. Queen Caroline washed her hair with turpentine. Turpentine to make it shine. Poor Queen Caroline. Ready, set, here you go.